What is up, YouTube? This is JR Juggernaut 1, and this is going to be a little special video series. Now, I was originally going to do a weekly meta discussion talking about Order of Chaos, but honestly, there isn't much point given that I'm making this series. This series is essentially going to be talking about Order of Chaos and how it's going to be affecting YCS Atlanta, and that's just what this first part is going to be. This first segment is this series is going to be called Prelude to YCS Atlanta, and it's just going to and it's pretty straightforward. It's going to be, talking about what I'm expecting with this, what I am expecting with like YCS Atlanta, some of the decks and so forth, giving my opinions on different variations. Part 1 is going to be dedicated to, it's going to be called The Bullshit Begins. Pretty straightforward. You guys know what these decks are. We're talking about windups and injectors. Now, these two decks are some of the worst decks we've seen in a while, people. Oh my god. Like, here's the thing that bugs me about it, I think, the most. Plants bug me. Plants are clearly an overpowered deck. Dark World, clearly an overpowered deck. Rabbit, clearly an overpowered deck. I can deal with both with all three of those decks. Simply for a few reasons. Number one, being that against plants, the deck isn't Plants deck, mirror match, better player will usually win. There's a level of skill required in playing that deck. Dark World, sort of the same thing. You do have to think about the different plays you make. It's a deck that's all about kind of building up your hand and sort of making sure you discard the right cards to create the most advantage. Rabbit. Oh, and the other thing with Dark World is there are some cards that just destroy it immediately. Shadow Imprisoning Mirror destroys it. Gemini Imps can destroy it at times. Won't always, but it's a card that can make it happen. What was the other card I was just thinking of? Excuse me. Oh, and D-Fissure wrecks it. But in terms of in terms of Rabbit isn't so bad to me because you have these vanilla beaters. The setup they can get is pretty stupid, but at the same time, there are ways of dealing with it, and it doesn't happen that often from what I see. These decks, on the other hand, are so much worse for the format than those decks. I don't like this format but at the same time, these cards don't make it any better. Now, windups, obviously, now each deck kind of has its own issues. With windups, the problem is they have a hand loop that kills you immediately. If they can make 2 rank 3s instantly on your turn, you're screwed. During their first turn, they can perform the loop. And they can hit you for like 2-3 cards. If they can make a rank 3 while they have Windup Hunter in the grave, they can hit your whole hand. The windups, their effects are pretty straightforward. Shark, however, was the card I think that made it clear that windups are actually the better deck over injectors, simply because it gives the deck more consistency and a larger amount of plays it can make. People have their own preferences with what cards to use. Some people like to take advantage of Windup Factory while also using Windup Rabbit because of the fact that Rabbit's effect can be used during your opponent's turn, essentially allowing you to use Windup Factory once during your turn and once during your opponent's. That's stupid good. I don't need to really say any more than that. Now, Injectors are different because they were like a more hyped deck because their effects are stupid. They equip each other from the grave, and the idea is just equipping this stupid thing. Insector Hornet. It detaches, it's your opponent's monster, it destroys a card in the field. Your opponent's monsters get their equip effects, searching or special summoning, allowing them to kill 2 of your, and if they, basically they lead off with Dragonfly, they can kill 2 cards on your field because they can hit one card, search for Centipede, it's the field. Centipede detaches, equips Hornet, detaches it, destroys another card, you get a Dragonfly. You're basically set up so you can perform the combo again the next turn. It's frustrating as hell. I don't really need to say much more. Now, this deck is just autopilot for that reason. Windups require a little bit more thought, but barely. It's just a card where the only difference is you have to think. It's about getting the combo. And the other thing is there are a lot more plays. There are other plays you can make besides the loop. So it's kind of like Frog FTK. You have it doesn't take skill to win the combo, but it does take skill to win all these matches, because you have to be able to, in order to win, you have to be willing to play the deck when you don't get the first turn, the FTK off. So that's kind of what this is here. You don't get the hand combo, you need to know what's the best play to make. So I don't need to really say much more. These decks are bullshit. They are just annoying for the format, and they really need to get hit. And the worst part is they're probably going to be the two best decks to run at YCS Atlanta, which is definitely annoying because, I kind of like the fact I liked having more decks in contention. Because for me, this past format, I haven't figured out what I think is the best deck of the format. On one hand, people will argue it's Rabbit, but and some people argue it's Plants. I'm just not sure. I definitely don't think it's Dark World, though, because Dark World might have a pretty good Plant matchup. It will lose to Rabbit if they get out D-Fissure, and I just don't find the deck to be that consistent. It relies on getting the draw engine, or some kind of draw engine, which can be difficult depending on their hand. I just feel like the dependence on that type of hand to make it work can make it more difficult to win with at times. Ultimately, I just see this deck as these two decks as decks that are going to need to get hit most by the ban list come this March. But we'll see what happens with that. What do I think should be done with these decks at the moment? Well, I definitely think Hornet should go to 1. It's the card of Inzectors that makes it really good. You equip this card, and yeah, stupid stuff happens. The thing that's good about this deck is it can still be played with only one Hornet, because they can just equip each other and make themselves 2600 beaters. That's really good, it's like that they have other ways. They don't need 3 Hornet to be good, so yeah. With windups, there are more options. With windups, there are 3 cards you could potentially hit in order to solve things. Number 1 is hit Zenmaity, which is what allows the combo to really work. You can keep Zenmaity seems like the card that should be hit the most, simply for the fact that it can bring out any windup monster, which can be really good, depending on how you play the deck. I think that's the major concern with it. You could also hit Rat, but at the same time, Rat seems to be not so much of a big deal, so I wouldn't be too concerned over it. You could also, you could limit one of these guys, or you could simply ban Windup Hunter, but honestly, I don't see much of a point to that, because I don't think people are going to find a loop for this, otherwise. I feel like just, limit the more annoying cards that, do more for the deck. Windup Hunter is just like, okay, we're banning it because of that stupid loop, that's it. I see Rat and Zenmaity doing more in general. But yeah, I guess I'm just gonna kind of end it off here. Tell me what you guys think of these decks. In the next episode, I'll probably be talking about the decks that will be the decks that are good to use against this, and the decks that aren't going to be good to use against it, and we'll go from there. So see you guys next time.